Welcome back to Kind of Funny's Game of Thrones, the final season in review for the final time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tim Gettys. This is Andy Cortez. That is Kevin Coelho. We got the keeper of plot, the explainer of scenes, Andrew Renee, and rounding out the group, big Nick Scarpino.
What up?
What?
It's done.
It's done, dude.
We finished it, everyone.
Thank
Congratulations,
God.
everyone.
Thank God it's
We got through.
We did.
We got through it.
We made it through. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's over. It was a surreal moment last night, having the theme song play and be like, wow.
It was bittersweet, man.
This is it?
Yeah.
This is it?
Is it over,
was
though?
it bittersweet?
Is it over?
It took me back to just like, this has been such a huge part of my life. Like, I wasn't there since season 1. I hopped in, I believe, towards the end of season 3. But still, I mean, that's like almost a little bit close to 5 years. It's a big chunk of my life, and I did feel kind of like sad. That like, oh man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, John tweeted last night something that was kind of sentimental and cute about how we started dating, watching Game of Thrones, and then we got engaged. Now we're married all throughout the duration of
You're playing the real game.
Game of
The game
Thrones.
of love.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
It's all about the game and how you play it.
It is. Triple H.
It all comes back to
I'm
Triple
gonna miss
H.
this. I'm gonna miss this.
Do we feel like on any level though, like given the 2 final shots that we got, or the 3 final shots that we got, that we're gonna get something later down the road?
Doubtful.
Like with Arya going
I don't
off
know
into
from
an
this
unknown
cast.
land,
Yeah,
and
I
John
don't
going
think
all of
so.
the far north. Like
I hope
you have
not.
to assume they've let themselves, at least for the audience, you're given like, okay, they're gonna have lives. There's other stuff happening that potentially maybe we'll never see, but at
I
least
don't think we'll see them. I think it's like better left hinted at for our imaginations. Like they did that for a reason, but I think the spin-offs are going to be way more past-based or just total.
You don't think we're gonna
outside
get
of
Arya the
this
pirate
cast.
on the high seas?
I don't.
I don't know.
Pretty cool,
I feel like that last conversation that John has with Tyrion, where he's like, "I probably won't see you again." He's like, "I don't know, man. Maybe in like 10 years, maybe you'll see me again." It's like kind of leads.
You mean
to
when
like
Bilbo and
him-
Frodo are leaving the shores?
I would have thought that.
That's a way more definitive ending for a variety of lore reasons I can't get into right now.
I would have thought that until John was like, cool. When he was at Castle Black, I was like, that's cool. And then they opened the gate and he just bounced north. I'm like, oh man, we're not seeing him again. We're never seeing. No
don't
one's going
think-
that far north.
I don't
It's like
think
when people want you to visit Tahoe and you're like, it's just so far. It's Tahoe, you know.
Wow, I can't believe
I
you're
don't
comparing
understand.
the
You
North
guys
to
are
Tahoe.
It's a 3-hour drive.
You go
It's
Tahoe
so far.
every like
I do go to
couple
Tahoe
of
a lot.
months.
But now when it's snowing, it's scary.
I don't know where this.
I feel like if we were to ever see this cast in any way again, it'd be in a movie. And I could see them doing
want
that.
that.
And I'd be fine with it. I would totally take it. This is Game of Thrones, the final season, episode 6, The Iron Throne. What a great name for it. The Iron Throne. First aired May 19, 2019. Directed once again by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. Written by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. A runtime of an hour and 20 minutes.
Reminds me of like Breaking Bad, how like the final episode, what's his face would always
Vince
direct.
Gilligan?
Yeah, Vince Gilligan would kind of take the reins of direction.
Yeah, he would always
It's really
do
cool.
this season finales.
So
and
this is
stuff.
kind of like that. Like, hey, we got this shit. You know,
Bringing it in.
Yeah,
You're going to
yeah.
land this.
Let's
land
end
the
it.
ship. That's how you do things with
You
ships.
do. You land ships.
What do we think about this one?
Oh,
I came in with the expectations of being disappointed, and so I didn't leave upset because I came in with my expectations adjusted properly.
Yeah.
I think this whole season, as people who've been watching this show with us, we has seen that we've been upset at most of the choices that they've made along the way, and so for all of the terrible choices that the showrunners and the writers and the directors have made up until this episode, I mean, they did the best with what they gave themselves to work with, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'm disappointed that I didn't walk away going, gosh, I love that ending.
This episode, having said that, like I totally agree with you, had a couple fucking awesome moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Not the least of which was like all the imagery with the dragons, where when she lands and she's walking and you see the dragon wings come out from behind her, I was like, fuck yeah. You know what? I wasn't on board with how dirty they did Dany in this episode until I saw that. I was like, you know what? I'm team fucking Dany now. Let's
Good
go.
Lord.
You're like the Empire. I love it.
Now
Let's
the
go.
Euron's gone. You need someone to root for.
But I just thought like her flying the banner and all that stuff was really, really cool. It's just so disappointing that was what they decided to do with that character so rapidly. I wouldn't mind if we had gotten there over the span of like 6 more episodes,
right?
Or really hinted that out. But I feel like that was such a 180 for that character that it was sad. But all the Dothraki and like I felt like that scene was terrifying. You're like, dude, she's gonna just murk everyone now. And Tyrion walking up, and I was like, I thought she was gonna stab him right in the head and be like, ha ha, you know. So
well, the Dothraki. I mean, obviously, I know I'll wait and hold it until we get to the recap, but you guys go ahead and give your thoughts.
I really liked it, and I thought that it ended it in the best way it possibly could, given the decisions that they made in the previous couple episodes. I thought that there were so many scenes that I'm like, this does feel deserved and earned over the course of the 8 seasons. Seeing her walk towards the Iron Throne with the score playing, with the ashes falling, all of that, I'm like, this is so beautiful and so well done. And it's not just a nice shot. It's like, I feel like this is good character. This is the Daenerys that we have seen for 8 seasons, not the last 2 episodes. And seeing Jon go up to her, that whole situation, so many of the character dynamics and conversations that we had in this episode, I'm like, fuck, this is why the show is so cool and so special. And I feel like the way that they ended it, while not perfect and not exactly what I wanted, I'm satisfied with it. There was a couple weird choices, like Bronn being involved felt a little like, what the fuck? This is weird fan service compared to everyone else there, where I'm like, all right, this makes sense, that makes sense. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I thought that they stuck the landing for how shaky the last couple episodes have been, especially when it comes to making it about the Starks. And sure, that might be too happy an ending compared to what we've been led to believe with Game of Thrones. But going into this season, we knew that there had to be an end. There had to be something.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like I was thinking about it. I was like, the ending was good. I wish that the way we got here was different. I wish that it was a little bit more fulfilling and a little bit more fleshed out, especially with Dany's character. But the ending was good. And then I was like, but how else would they have ended it? Because I think the poignant aspect was like, we have to break the cycle of war. And so the only way to do this is how they did it. Because I was like, other than that, like what could they have done? Like then they got to go to war with the Dothraki and everyone gets destroyed. I guess they could have done that, but
I'm really satisfied with how they ended it. I just think that a couple of the key story choices, I was just like, why? Like the North seceding, I'm like,
why would anyone be okay with it?
That was a fan service.
We saw so much of this
because we need the Queen in the North, and then Jon being sent to the Wall, but then he just leaves the Wall. It's like
I think that he was. I don't think that he was leaving his post at the Wall. I think that he was more like, oh, I'm gonna take you guys to wherever you guys want to go, and then he's gonna come back.
I gotta read that he's going to be king.
I gotta read
on the Wall.
Yeah,
he's gonna be the new Mance Raider.
Yeah.
Like the Starks are all kings now, kings and queens.
I felt like this episode was very, very fan serving, very predictable, and it just like to me it was a disappointment. Just like as the series finale, I don't think like. Did they do the best they could? Sure, but like it's not like they were cleaning up someone else's mistakes. They made the mistakes that put us in the position where we are at now, where it's like, oh yeah, this is the best. It was like, no, like do a better season. You should have made it longer and like let it play out instead of rushing everything and making us feel like all these decisions are wrong and like our characters are not acting the way that like we understood them to like be.
I completely agree with Tim. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a lot of the moments. I do feel like I don't think it was completely predictable because like I don't think anybody saw Bran being chosen, but that was kind of like out of
except
left
for
field.
Bran saw it.
Yeah, Bran saw it, yeah.
Why else would I leave the ship down here?
I don't.
awesome.
I don't love that decision. But I mean, if they would have picked somebody else, I think the retort would have been, "Oh, that was so predictable." Like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. At this point, with like DB Weiss and Benioff,
True.
I still loved it. I really enjoyed it. At the end of it, I felt emotional. Like, you know, they really drilled down that fucking theme song.
Like so many variations.
Yeah, so many cool variations. They played like the major keys with it. It wasn't like the
that
minor.
was weird. It was weird to hear that.
It was cool as shit though. I
Like
really enjoyed
when
it.
John looks back and the door is closing off
They
to him.
should have cut there.
Yeah.
It was weird that they kept going and let him walk into the woods.
I liked it because you didn't see, they cut to a shot of him on a horse and all of his people walking into the north, and I think I liked that shot a lot. You saw him look back, and you saw him basically symbolizing like that my past is now closed off to me. I'm done. And then you saw him looking forward with his people, and you're like, he's going to be king of the Wildlands.
I feel like they should have cut when he looked back, like looked forward. I mean, he looked back, looked forward. They should have cut. Instead, they dragged the scene on. And you saw them from behind walking into the wouds.
That's my heart right there, dog.
Man,
We could've
Ghost
got that
got
scene
pet,
going
though.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Ghost finally got
Ghost got some
back.
Yeah, good boy Ghost.
That was an audible like moment
I
for
know.
me, like
Yeah.
in my room. Like I really enjoyed that. There was I think this moment did a lot of, or this episode had a lot of moments that made me happy and made me feel satisfied. I still wonder like, why did they show that white horse at the end of the last episode if Arya didn't really do anything? Like,
very
there was,
strange.
there was a
So
lot of moments
strange.
over the season of like, but why did they do that? So,
Yeah.
shall we get into the
Let's do it.
to the
Let's
episode?
Let's do it.
the
So
plot of God.
that's right.
Why
the
didn't we do
first
that?
scene that we have, plot of God, that we have is picks up right after the carnage of the previous episode of the destruction of King's Landing, we have Tyrion walking through the wreckage of the burnt city surrounding the Red Keep. We've got Jon and Davos behind him, and they all come across this mother and daughter that Arya saw and was trying to help escape, that got burnt by Drogon with the little horse figurine in her hand. And I think that in that moment is when, was really impactful for Jon. I was like, oh, like this was the stakes. I mean, Tyrion already knew that this was going to happen, and I think it was also a weird, almost kind of an allegory for, maybe I'm misusing that word, for Davos and Shireen, right? Like have him coming upon her burnt body holding the little toy that he made for her. So I think all three of them were really impacted in that moment. So I thought it was a really nice scene to
that
kind of
burnt man walking by them.
Horrifying,
Yeah.
man.
Oh my
About
God.
10 minutes here, no music cues at all.
Yeah. Complete silence. There was a lot of silence throughout this whole episode. I rewatched it this morning while I was getting ready because I knew I wouldn't need to look at the visuals as much because it was so dialogue focused. And there was just like a ton of silence. And I thought that in and of itself was impactful. Then we cut to Grey Worm as this trio walks up on him as he's sentencing these Lannister soldiers to die. They have them on their knees. They're about to execute them. And then Jon goes up to him and is like, please don't do this. And then Davos is like, how much more defeated could they be? Look
Yeah.
around you. We won. And I thought that was just like, you always knew the Grey One was going to kill these guys. I mean, that was the order. And then they have this scuffle between them about like, what is the Queen's order? Davos pulls him away and then was like, let's go talk to the Queen. It's like, yeah, this is like the scene I think everyone's been waiting for. Jon like meeting up with Daenerys after all this has happened. And then of course they walk away and they kill the soldiers anyway.
Violently.
Yeah. Well, they slit everyone's throats, right?
Ridiculous.
I mean, but that's part of war, right? Is the idea that we already know that she doesn't take prisoners, right? She established that last season.
She doesn't take prisoners when they don't submit.
Yeah,
she doesn't
they-
take prisoners,
Right.
except she does, though, because
Yeah.
she took Tyrion and Jon.
Except she
so-
does. Oh, this is another plot hole, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, she does when she does, but then she doesn't when she doesn't, which is like.
Or you could fight for us, sort of thing. With, like
Yeah,
with the
but-
Lannisters in that one.
I had kind of hoped that they would
she
have given
killed-
those soldiers that option to be like, like she gave so many of the slaves when she was in Astapor or in Marine.
But I do think this is like her too far gone moment, Like,
Yeah,
obviously,
of course.
Obviously.
Yeah. So after that scene, then we cut back to Tyrion, who is now broke off from Davos and Jon to say, like, I need to be by myself. He heads to the Red Keep. We see him crossing the map room, this iconic map room that we've seen so many times. He picks up a torch and then heads downstairs, sees all of the rocks that have collapsed into this underground area where he has sent Jaime to hopefully escape with Cersei.
I do really quickly like Jon saying, like, let me send some guards with you. Like, it's dangerous,
Yeah.
and Tyrion just being like, nah, man, like, this is my fucking, this is
Yeah.
what I got to do. It's really cool.
And really him saying, like, I don't care if I live or die at this point. After all that he's been through, he's like, whatever, if I get killed, I get killed. That's just going to be it, I guess. And so he gets down. And this is, to me, my personal, most emotional scene of the finale, of when he gets down there, he sees Jaime's hand sticking through some of the rubble, and then he goes and slowly pulls all the rocks off, and we see Jaime and Cersei together underneath, obviously very clearly dead in the rubble, and him just having that moment of realizing he's the last of his entire family.
Am I the
that's
only one
there.
that saw the hand and was like, maybe that was just like a red herring? Like he just stuck the hand in there just to give a little more time. So then when they buried it out, it was just the hand. With like,
No.
fuck you.
I was more like,
That was
they
just you,
literally
Nick.
could have just moved 30 feet that way.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
been
Been
totally
fine.
fine.
Yeah, there was tons of tweets of like,
Yeah.
if only they would have stood there or whatever.
Well, that's the whole like
Yeah.
Jack and what's her name on the
Titanic.
yeah, the Titanic on the door, like she
Yeah.
of
Find
all the
another door.
diagrams of how she could have saved room for him on the door.
Also, like they could have gone through the hallway trying to go back out, and like they would have been fine. The hallway that he comes into.
Yeah.
Well, the way that they shot it during that scene, it looked like the building was crumbling from that direction, and so if they had run that way, they would have gotten hit by the rocks anyway.
He sees the hand, and then you just see a blade come out, like, blade has
Finally,
it. He chose to never use it. What a hero.
But I do like moments leading up to that though, where he crawls and he sees the rocks there, and there's just a little glimmer of like light coming
Yeah.
through, and you're like, oh, maybe they did get away. And then no, they didn't get away. It was really sad.
And shout out to Peter
The
Dinklage
Dink.
for just an incredible performance the whole series, but in this moment, just really, really did a great job selling.
Gia's a hating ass
tragedy.
hater. She's like, Peter Dinklage sucks. I'm like, Gia,
What?
You need to fucking. She's gonna listen to this. She's not gonna watch it.
No, why?
Yeah, thank you guys.
Gia's not welcome in this
He's
house.
one of the
not.
best on this entire show.
He played the villain in Underdog, and he was great.
He played everything.
Take that.
He was an elf.
wow.
He was an elf.
Gia, I think you're great, but that's a bad
Yeah.
take. So after this scene, then we cut to the armies outside. We actually cut straight to Arya, and she's still, very dirty, full of blood and ash, and
Not on a horse.
not on the horse. So the horse is just mysteriously gone, which is whatever. It's
'Cause it
fine.
didn't mean anything.
So we're seeing her look at the Dothraki, as they're kind of all like riled up, and she sees Jon, and they kind of have this moment of locking eyes, and then he just keeps walking through the Dothraki up towards the top of the giant staircase leading up to the Red Keep, where presumably Daenerys is going to give her victory speech when we see the Unsullied lining the staircase there. This
Great
shot.
acoustics.
Yeah. The whole scene was really, really well done. And the reason I wanted to bring up the Dothraki is because I think it's important to remember this is really where Daenerys came from. If you think about season 1 and everything that she went through with the Dothraki and how she really kind of got her first glimpse of what battle and war looks like through the eyes of the Dothraki. I think we kind of forgot about them because we haven't really seen the
because
Dothraki
they
in
all
their
died.
element from. Well,
That's why we were surprised that they were there.
Yeah,
They
but
were all very
I was
clearly
done being
dead.
mad about that after the Battle of Winterfell because, you have to either continue to be mad about everything or you kind of got to go with it and be like, this is the way it is.
that I feel like that's where it's like this no longer has the reality that it always had, where it's like, oh, we clearly saw all the Dothraki die. All the lights went out, and that was the whole regiment going out to attack. Very few men came back, but it's like, oh, never mind. No. Half of them survived, and it's like, where did they go? How did half of them survive? It doesn't make any sense. And like that to me is like fan service, being like, oh no, don't worry, they still made it through. And it's like, wait, how? But that doesn't matter how, they did. And it's just like,
Well, it's happened throughout the whole series.
Yeah, well-
Arya got stabbed like a million times. And
yeah,
Yeah.
and those were weak moments that we can point to and be like, that's what makes this, like, that's what makes the later seasons nowhere near as good as the first few.
Yeah, I agree with Andrea though. Like, they've made mistakes. At this point, I'm just let's see how this ends.
Yeah. So,
And I also think that some of that stuff can be explained away just budgetarily, right? Like you can't show thousands and thousands of people all the time, so they just
Sure.
have to say, "Hey, a lot of these guys survived because they
It's
didn't."
not
really,
budget though because they said they died.
But like even when when we saw the Battle of Winterfell, you only saw like maybe 1,000 people in the shot. You know what I mean? Like you didn't see it. We haven't seen this many Unsullied ever. As we get in this shot that she's about to talk about, where
just when
there's
she
just
fought
thousands of them.
Well, no,
them at
we-
the very
yeah.
first time she encounters them, like that's the last time.
Yeah, when
right?
she wins them over.
And there was
What
only
I'm
like
saying
20
is-
of them when they went to go see Cersei at
Yeah.
the wall.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is like I get what you're saying, Kevin. I'm totally with you, but like we don't ever really get a sense of scale for what these armies are in the show, just because
True.
they just can't do it. Like
Yeah.
we're supposed to think there's like 50,000 people fighting these wars, and at any given time we only see like
300.
30.
Yeah.
And they're like, and then they did the cloning tool in Photoshop where they just kept putting them back into the alleys.
Yeah, my kind of feeling about it, all the things to be mad at, this is not the top of my list. So we hear a speech from Daenerys as she speaks to the Dothraki. She reminds them, you fulfilled all your promises to me. You killed the men in the iron suits. You tore down their stone houses. And I thought it was a really nice, callback to when she gave her big speech after burning all the calls, back when she thought she was going to become their prisoner. And she was like, nah, bitch, I'm going to show you who's really in charge here. Really reminding us of her strength and what she's been through as a character. And why she is standing up there. She then names Grey Worm the Queen's Master of War, calling him her
So
most
scary.
loyal friend and servant. And it's like he's a great soldier, but a master of war. What does he know about fighting, battles against political
Strategizing.
allies or political enemies? You know what
He's
I
a
mean?
yes man though, and that's all she needs.
That's true.
I thought
Also, who
that-
else was it going to
I
be?
thought her
Yeah.
writing was really strong in this episode throughout the entire thing. Her saying the exact same thing she always has, but now the context is so different, and it's a really cool. That is what Game of Thrones is about, which is there good and bad, or is it just the same person at any moment. They can be either, because it's literally like the same words being said. And we see this later with her and John.
Right. So then she continues with her speech, talking about like from Winterfell to Dorne, like from Lannisport to Highgarden, and then she calls out all these places.
Like, we need to liberate these
saying
places.
we're, we're going to the people of King's Landing are liberated, and in my mind I'm like, nah, bitch, they're all dead.
Yeah.
And then she's like, we need to liberate all of these people all across the 7 kingdoms.
I just imagine John being like, did she fucking say Winterfell? Like, what?
Yeah, and then she asked, the crowd, will you break the wheel with me? I came here to break the wheel. Will you break it with me? And it's just like,
riled up.
I mean, and that's when I think during the latter part of her speech is when we kind of get the hint of like, is she a little mad with power? Is this war ever going to end? Because I think even as viewers leading up to this moment, we thought that this would be it for her. That she's like, she's on the Iron Throne, like she won. But clearly not. And then Tyrion comes forward. She says, you committed treason. He pulls the Queen's hand pin off of his vest.
What a fucking badass, man.
Throws it down
Zero
the
fucks
stairs.
given.
And this is when the Unsullied were banging their spears up and down because she just named Grey Worm the Master of War. And then they stop when they see him throw the pin. And she says, about this committed treason. And he said, yes, I freed my brother, but you slaughtered a city. And at that moment, I thought maybe she would have killed him like right then and there.
Yeah.
But
It was really
But,
funny
like,
when
that's
they cut to the silence of the crowd because the Unsullied saw banging, but in the background, like the Dothraki are still like having orgies and shit. Like, they're still going buck wild, but it's like completely silent. Like,
Yeah, so here's my question though, as this is a legit question, not rhetorical. Was her plan always to go further than King's Landing? I always thought that she was going to get the throne and then there would be peace.
That's
Because
what,
she made
that's
it,
what
she
the
made it sound like
assumption I
it's-
had was as
we're
well.
she
taking
made
over
it
the
seem
whole
like there
world.
was tyrants
Yeah.
in, like there was a tyrant ruling Winterfell and shit like that. Like,
And it's just like, wait, that doesn't.
Yeah.
Like they've sworn allegiance to you, dude.
I feel like throughout the seasons, though, I feel like her goal has changed. It's always been the Iron Throne, but once she started doing the Marine stuff and Astapor and all that and freeing the
Yeah.
slaves, I feel like the reason she stayed over there so much longer than like for so many seasons before coming over was she was like, oh, fuck, I have more to do with the power that I have. I need to free people.
more money,
So
more
it's like-
problems.
I need to make things better in the long run.
Yeah.
Not just
So
freeing them and
I think
going
that this
away.
is in line with her plan. I just think that it's in a very different way, where before liberating mean freeing the slaves, and now liberating means killing everyone.
Decimating everyone.
is that what
Mass
she means?
genocide.
Like,
She's
like-
like the Joseph Stalin of Game of Thrones.
I was confused though, where it's like, is she saying she liberated them by killing them? Like,
No, I think that I mean,
'cause
I think
it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I get that we're supposed to buy that she's this mad queen now, but,
No, but I think, Kevin, I think what it's trying to show is that she was saying that they were all bad because they followed Cersei. So she's going to go to each place and be like, do you follow me? And if their leader says yes, she's like, you're good then. And if not, it's like, you're following the wrong person then. Fuck y'all.
yeah.
And I think they did a good job of setting up, her inevitable downfall through this scene. And so she leaves. She has this moment where she locks eyes with Jon. They don't say anything. He's clearly very upset with her, and she's just like, I'm in
She
charge.
just walks away.
She walks away, and then Arya appears next to Jon.
So cool. I
Yeah.
love that. The camera's going over and Arya's just there. I'm like, yeah.
psycho.
And they have this moment where she says, you'll always be a threat to her. Just so you know, like, because Jon has maintained she is my queen, she's my queen, she'll always be my queen.
Lying to
the
himself.
whole time.
Tell
Well,
you
I
what,
mean,
he's clearly not that big of a threat to her because she's totally fine letting him walk in with a sword and her being unarmed in the throne room. And
But
he had a
he
cool
just-
side that he's never had before. I was like,
Raphael,
where'd you steal that
baby.
from, Raphael? Exactly.
it's weird that he disarmed himself to go visit Tyrion, but then not to visit her. Like there were guards
Yeah.
outside that were like, "Give me your weapons."
Yeah,
and,
you would
like,
think
hand
she'd
them
have
over.
like if this guy because you get the feeling from her that she gets it like this guy is a threat. But then like, hey, good to see you, man. Hey, how's it going? Like, oh no,
Come
dude,
hang out with me.
What
Look
the
at
fuck?
this. We
Why would
got
anyone?
it.
I don't know. There's a couple things in this episode that I'm like, once the Dothraki figured out that she was dead, wouldn't they have torn everything apart? Like, would they had? You can't control them. They would have just
Yeah.
fucking decimated the city at that point.
I don't think so. Because from everything we've learned about the Dothraki, like they follow strength, and if she was allowed herself to be murdered, then she, in their eyes, would be weak,
Well,
right?
then what we would have gotten is the Dothraki would have fought amongst themselves to find a leader,
And then they would have left.
and then that leader would have left or started pillaging all over
Right.
Westeros.
Was it implied that Grey Worm was still their leader? Like, were they on the ships leaving with the Unsullied?
I didn't
we did
see
not
them.
see the
Yeah.
what happened to the Dothraki after that initial battle speech.
Yeah.
So
They're still power orgying back in the back.
They're going to Dorne, dude. Dorne does it better.
Lord knows how.
You see a couple of them like walking throughout, like when John is leaving, you see like a couple of them in the background, so it just seems like they're just all hanging
They're
out.
trying to blend in.
Yeah.
trying to blend in.
Hello, would you like to purchase some? Like they're like they become
So
like village
weird.
Just NPCs and
market
side quests.
sellers and shit.
So now we cut to John inside the castle, going to where Tyrion is being held a prisoner. Then they have this really impactful moment between the two of them, a speech where Tyrion essentially convinces him that he needs to murder Daenerys.
Game of Thrones at its best, I think.
Yeah.
I love this because this felt like this was in line with these characters from episode 1 all the way through. And again, it's taking into consideration the good and the bad, but I think the good is what matters more here because in these moments, Tyrion wins.
And we see the writing like chops at Benioff and Weiss, like in terms of like dialogue. I think they are phenomenal dialogue writers, and we have that great reference to Varys, where
Varys' ashes can tell my ashes. See,
Yeah.
I told you.
I love it.
Yeah, it was a great line about Tyrion admitting that he betrayed his best friend. I don't think we'd ever heard him call
Yeah.
Varys his best friend before, and how much that clearly impacted Tyrion that we didn't really get to see in his arc this season at all. He said that I betrayed my queen and I would do it again. And he looks at Tyrion looks at Jon and is like, would you have done it? You felt the power of riding on the back of a dragon. Would you have burned the city?
John's like, I don't know, maybe. He's like, nah, bitch,
Yeah.
you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know
Come on,
you
dude.
No way,
Come
no
on,
way you
bro.
would have
Yeah.
done it.
Exactly.
Bro, come on.
Just, she believes her destiny is to build a better world. And then they have this back and forth about love is more powerful than reason. Look at my brother. Tyrion says, look at what it did to Jaime and to Cersei. And then Jon pulling the Master Aemon quote of love is the death of duty. And then duty is the death of love. They have this back and forth about philosophical quips. And I'm like, okay, cool. So what are we getting to here?
No, but see, I love this though because this is them not forgetting the history of this show and
Absolutely.
referencing Aemon. Even it's just like he is a Targaryen and he was with Jon. It's like there's so much beautiful shit going on there that I enjoy because for the last couple episodes,
Weaving
it's felt
together,
like they
yeah.
forgot a lot of the things that happened in the past, and I like that
Yes.
this was like this is the conclusion to the show.
And this is the most game moment of the game, right? Is that we get those ethical and moral like problems where it's like in order to do the right thing, you have to do this horrible thing, and that's Game of Thrones right there.
Right.
And vice versa.
And Tyrion even acknowledges that. He's like, you know, what I'm asking you to do is a terrible, awful thing, but it's the right thing. And then Jon moves to leave and says, she is the queen. And in that moment, I like wrote wow, period in my notes because I was like, still after all
Come on,
that.
dude.
And then Tyrion throws one last Hail Mary, which is like, what about your sisters?
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to bend the
Yeah.
knee? And I think that was the line that pushed Jon over the edge.
Something that's really cool I saw someone bring up on Twitter is there was a line that Tywin said seasons ago, I think it was to Arya, that was just like, whoever has to say that they're the king is not the real king. Like you are the king, you're respected as the king. If you need to say it, something's wrong. And Daenerys says, I am the queen a bazillion times this season. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, that's interesting because he
Tyrion
says that to
talking
Joffrey, right?
Joffrey, yeah.
Yes.
Tywin
that's
says it
what
to
was.
Joffrey?
Tywin and Joffrey, yeah.
Was it Ty? Oh,
Yeah, because
Oh.
Tywin
Yeah.
was really the only one that could keep Joffrey in his place.
Yeah.
Even his own mother couldn't do it. So after that scene, we get this really fantastic animated scene with Jon walking up to where the throne room is, and you get Drogon, who has been underneath
Oh,
the
that was
snow,
cool.
does this shake.
It's not snow.
And
Ash.
it looks very clearly like
it
snow.
looks like snow. There's many points where you see it like
Yes.
on someone's like sleeve, and it looks like snow.
Not Ash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but like,
ash.
how would there still be ash falling that much? It looked white.
Well,
It
I mean,
looked like
this
snow
was.
to me.
You have to assume this was
weeks
just
moments
later.
after
No,
the-
no, no, no. This was moments after.
Yeah, this is like right after.
Yeah,
everything
right after.
calmed
It's all
down.
ash. It just looks like snow. Like I think.
Although that does back the question, but wasn't winter supposed to come at some point? Down
Yeah,
here?
and it doesn't.
It
This
never
looked
came.
like snow
Winter's
to
coming,
me.
and it's still coming.
What I mean,
I
what,
don't
it came
think
as
it's worth
Jamie
debating
left.
at this point.
when they
Yeah, it
arrived
doesn't matter,
there
yeah.
to blow King's Landing to shit. Like it was not snowing
at all. Yeah.
So,
So-
it's
But
all
when
ash.
Jamie left, it was
So like
starting
ash
to
snow, whatever
so-
the fuck it is. It
This is a fucking
It was a
awesome
cool
moment.
scene where Drogon shakes it off. He gets up. He's clearly guarding the door where Daenerys is. But then he has this moment, this face off with Jon, where he's like, "Oh, it's just you. I know you. And
Yeah.
go on
Great.
in."
I mean, the cinematography, that shot.
Yeah, it was a really cool
the
shot.
The wide shot of Drogon looking at Jon and Jon's super tiny. Like, what
And
a
just-
beautiful.
and John and Kit Harington selling it, where he's like, "Fuck!" Like
Yeah.
you can tell he's still terrified of these things because he has no control over them. And then they go, "You can pass it.
It's
Cool."
super
Yeah.
good. The
It's like
Dark
when you
Souls
get into the
meme.
club and you're like, "Yeah, okay, all right, cool. I didn't know if I was gonna get in." But
Did you all see the Dark Souls meme that kind of went around? They overlay the Dark Souls UI on top of this, and like you walk up, and then Drogon kind of shakes it off, and then he becomes a boss that you have to fight. Like,
That seems right. So now we had this really symbolic moment with Daenerys, and the cinematography in this scene was fantastic as well. This whole episode was really well shot.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the entire show. Her walking in, like seeing the throne. From that moment, hearing the music, like the version of the theme that they use is so beautiful. The ash falling as she walks is just something that we've seen hinted at for so long. And from that moment up until Jon killing her, I just think is so good because her getting to the throne, the story that she tells him about the hearing stories about how many swords were there and not even being able to imagine it. And it's the same type
1,000
of
swords,
words
yeah,
that
whatever it
Daenerys
was.
has used the entire show, but all of a sudden, like Jon calls her out as just, and when he interrupts her story,
I love that.
That was like some of the best fucking dialogue we've seen. I love it so much.
Yeah, no, it was a really powerful scene for a variety of reasons. So, she's, as Tim was saying, they had this interchange about her talking about her brother explaining to her what the Iron Throne was, and then him just cutting to the chase of like, I saw people die.
I didn't see that coming.
No.
Little children burnt in the streets. Have you been down there? And I think that was really important for him to be like, have you seen the carnage of what you did, the impact of who you killed? Because clearly she hasn't, right? She hasn't been down there to see all the people that are dead and dying actively in the streets. And then they have this back and forth where he's trying to suss out, you know, what her plan is. And she talks about how she wants him alongside her. We're going to remake the world. We're going to break the wheel together. We can do it. And then he says,
He's like, I'm tired.
pretty much. And then he's like, but what about Tyrion? You can let him go. And then she's like, no, I can't. And he's like, but you can, but you totally can. It's up to you. You can totally just do it. And then she says, we can't hide behind small mercies. It really kind of a hint of her growing into her role as a kind of ruthless leader, someone who has to make hard decisions as the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. And then them having this philosophical back and forth about what is good. How do you know what is good? And then her saying, I know what is good, and so do you. You've always known. And then the line I think that did it for Jon was, he says, but what if I don't know? And then she's like, but you do. And he's like, but what of the other people that think that they know what's good? And then Daenerys says, they don't get to choose.
Yeah.
And I think that was the line that drove it home for Jon, that he was like, all right, I got to do it.
yeah.
And then he did it.
And then he stabs her.
I love
I didn't
that
think he was
You were my
gonna
queen
though.
now.
so
and
quick.
always.
And that was the moment like we have 40 minutes left in this. Like I
Yeah.
love that because I thought Jon was going to
I
kill
thought this was going to be
Dany,
a final 5
but I
minute
thought it was
scene,
going to be like towards the end.
Yeah.
I love the choice they make. I love how quick it was because we get it. We don't need to be in Jon's head more. I feel like they did such a great job setting up his conversation with Tyrion leading into this. It was just like so good.
Yeah.
And then this really cool scene with Drogon. So as soon as she's stabbed, you kind of hear the rumblings of Drogon outside, and then he flies into the throne room, and Jon is there still holding Daenerys' body as she's just died.
And it's scary, dude.
Yeah,
I was like, what, is Drogon about to fuck Jon
I
up?
thought
his
that, and
ass
I
up.
honestly would
I
have
wish
been
he
okay
had.
with it.
Yeah, I
would
wish
have
he
been
had.
okay
And
with
that was
it.
the end of all the Targaryens, but instead he doesn't, and instead he destroys the Iron Throne, and it's just like
I like that.
I get it, but at the same time, that's not the case. Like Iron Throne, while no longer physically existing, it still exists.
Yeah.
You know,
But it
As
was
much-
it's a different
though.
person sitting
and
on
it's
it.
funny, it's because John, when we were watching together, he says that dragon hates symbolism, and I wrote wrote it down because it was so funny. Because like as cool of a scene as it was of Drogon,
It was cheesy. Yeah.
melting down the
cheesy.
Iron Throne. Why on earth would Drogon melt the fucking Iron Throne? But
She's been talking about it a lot.
I was gonna say,
he doesn't know what it is.
But I kind of gleaned that dragons
Dragons
are
are
a
smart. They're
lot
like
I know they're
smarter than we
smart,
thought
but-
they are, and he's just been like, I'm so tired of everyone fighting over this fucking thing. I'm gonna
Yeah.
roast this thing and just bounce. I don't
Yeah.
care anymore.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh,
the take
like
I
that.
saw, and that while cheesy, I do think it's super cheesy, but like, you know, it wasn't John that killed Dany. It was the Iron Throne that was her sort of
Undoing.
her undoing or whatever.
Yeah.
But still, like, I still think it was cheesy as fuck.
Yeah. It
but
was-
but I kind of liked it too. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like it's
I
a
think-
3-finger scale, Nick.
It's right in the middle. I think story wise, yes, the way they did it might not have been the most like delicate way, but they needed to get rid of the symbolism of the throne because that we're gonna see like
Yes.
4 or 5 scenes from now is exactly what this whole series is built up to. It's no longer about whoever sits on the throne has power. It's about everyone gets to decide who has the power now.
Well, not
And the throne-
everyone. It's this small council gets to decide.
Sure, but they're like the representatives of all the regions, right? They're the heads of the houses, and yes, they didn't get picked to be heads of the
I mean-
houses, but they are the
Yeah.
ones. At least there's some level of democracy or a republic now that they're living in. As far as like, you can't just have like, I love the line we get later where like sons of kings tend to be little shitheads or however it was. Sorry, I spit on you.
Is that right?
So I like that, and so you had to like the Iron Throne needed to be melted. It had to be melted.
But
somehow.
like this isn't like the end of the game. This is just now the game is slightly different. There's not like a trophy at the end. Like there's still a king, and like these people will be playing the game still afterwards. to
Sure. But that's
have
always
their
going to be the
houses.
case,
That's
right?
politics,
Like, that's
man.
always going to be the case.
Yeah.
Anytime you have like millions of people that need to be ruled over, you're going to have some people that are vying for power, and that's and I think that we see that at the very end too when Sam's like, "What if everyone just voted?" And then they fucking laugh at him. And
Yeah.
you're like, "Okay, we're not that far. We're not that far yet. Okay. We're not that
Yeah.
progressive yet. I'm sorry. Okay."
So
Kevin, it's
that
race
leads
culture, dude.
Perfectly into our next scene.
Race wars.
So Drogon picks up Daenerys' body and then flies away. Presumably, we never see from him or hear from him again, even though Bran alludes to it later on. So
It's like, I'll find him.
So now we have we cut to Tyrion inside of his cell, presumably weeks later, several
Bigger
weeks
beard.
They
later.
say months later. At
Yeah,
some
it's
point.
a bigger beard.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, obviously the people have to travel down from the north to get here, and people are coming in from Dorne and from all over, and so they. Grey Worm and some of the Unsullied bring him before the council, the same place where they had tried to have a council with Cersei, where she falsely told them she would help them fight the army of the dead, and
Kind of a cut I wasn't expecting. Like, I didn't expect this sort of time change to happen. When it was happening, I was
thought
like,
it
what's
would.
going on?
They
I mean-
dipped to black after John, like after the dragon left, and I thought it was going to say like 10 years later. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
No, it was not 5
Something.
years later. It's just a couple months. But before we find out what happens, let me tell you. Back to the plot, Andrea.
So now we're coming to a very important pivotal scene in the finale where Tyrion is brought before this council. We see kind of like the who's who of Westeros, who's left here, right? We finally get to see Yara again from the Iron Islands. We get this new Dornish prince, whoever he is. Robin of the Vale is all grown up and super tall,
Super
apparently.
sexy. He reminds me of Kevin's hot brother.
Oh, is that who that was? I didn't. Yeah.
Did you not realize? It was
No,
Robin?
I didn't realize
He had
that
the
kid was-
exact same clothes on.
Yeah.
The whole show.
Yeah, he never changed
Yeah,
outfits.
but when's the last time we saw that kid? Like,
When they,
seasons ago. 2
yeah, the
seasons
Battle of
ago,
the Bastards.
yeah. So then we've got Davos, Brienne, and Gendry kind of hanging out together.
I was just like, I don't know why I'm here.
he's like, do I get a vote? I don't know. Whatever.
There are a lot of people there that it's like you're only here for fan service.
No, and that's what I wrote. Edmund Tully is alive. What the fuck?
Oh, he's not alive. We knew he was alive.
I know, but like
Yeah.
we haven't seen him
He
since
makes-
that moment at River Run where the Blackfish, got destroyed by Jaime. So,
That wasn't that long ago, though. Like, it feels long to us because it's been 3 years.
Right.
But, like, season-wise and events that have happened, that wasn't
It was like a
that
season
long
and a half ago.
Yeah.
But also, like,
Short
I think
seasons.
the reason why I was so confused is like, who even cares about him?
Yeah.
And so, like, the fact
Well,
that he was
they
there was
made
so.
that point.
They did. And so,
That was a
we've got
funny
Sansa,
moment.
Arya, and Bran, the Starks,
Yeah.
all together, and then they have Tyrion there, and Grey Worm clearly is trying to get justice, and they're like, well, where's Jon? You were supposed to bring both of the prisoners, and they're like, we're not bringing him. He's our prisoner. We do what we want. You're not our boss.
Until 10 seconds later when they're like, okay, cool. I guess you
I
guys
guess you are
decided
the
a
boss
king. I'll see
now.
you guys later. We're gonna leave.
Yeah, the whole-
It's so dumb, and like again, the people that were there, it didn't make a lot of sense. Like, why was Brienne there? Why was Arya and it's like I don't know who's.
Is
I guess
Brienne not the head of her
Sansa's-
house?
Huh?
Is she the head of her house now?
Yeah, but that house is underneath. Like I think the Tullys is what we were trying to figure out.
I think
later.
it's underneath the Tarleys, but because
the Tarleys.
I'm not sure Samwell's house.
Yeah,
But I'm not
But
positive.
Samwell
I would
was
have to
the-
look up the actual like org chart of like
Yeah.
where Tarth sits underneath the houses. But I mean,
I just got that they were the only ones left.
yeah.
Like, I
and
think
I got
everyone
that
else
she
has
was
been
there to
killed.
protect. I got that she was there to protect the Starks in
Yeah,
case something happened.
thought that too. So I feel like there was a couple representatives, and then there's a couple like not bodyguards, but just like they're
like
with
heavy,
you.
like the
Bodyguards
muscle,
plus
yeah.
one.
typically don't
Plus
sit
ones.
on like the council chairs, you
It
know.
was hot, dude. They had to stay in the
Bro,
It's a different time.
you don't
I just
understand how
thought
sun
this was
hits you.
so fan service.
It was weird.
Like,
It was a
all right,
weird choice
cool.
to have all those people there because they made the decision
Yeah.
to have characters we haven't seen, which I thought was good
Yeah.
to represent the other places. But then,
some of them.
have-
Like, why was John or Robin Aaron's like mentor guy there?
Because
he's a different family.
Yeah, but they're still
The guy
but
with
he's
the-
under
underneath the
Aarons,
veil,
in the veils.
so he would be he
That was a little weird.
like he shouldn't have
Robin
been sitting
is
there.
his
Yeah.
commander, essentially. It's
But-
the same reason why, like, none of the other Northern lords were there because Sansa represents the North, and so
Yeah.
they wouldn't have a say at that council.
It's the same
why
reason
is
why
Yara there?
at the Let's Play panel, Jeff Ramsey's there, but also Greg Miller. And,
Jeff
Great,
clearly did
that's a
better
great
than those
analogy.
two.
So-
By
he's the
far.
leader, you know.
So then
By far,
Tyrion starts on this speech, this long speech of him being like, I've had lots of time to just sit and think in my cell. And he's like, what unites people? Armies, gold, flags, stories. And then he goes into this long thing about the keeper of the stories. And that's why I think Bran the Broken should be king. And then he goes into all the reasons why Bran should be king. Rulers shouldn't be born. They will be chosen. Why do you think I came all this way? It was just like such a zinger of a line. The whole way that this scene unfolded was just kind of frustrating, especially when Samuel tries to be like, but wait, what about democracy? Let the people pick.
And they
then
all laugh at him. It
And then
was
he just
like,
goes and
all
sits
right.
back down. And I was like,
Here's my
okay.
thing. I don't have a problem with Sam putting that out there and like them
Yeah.
laughing at it. I do think that this whole thing was wrapped up really not conveniently, just weird. That Tyrion's like, I'm the prisoner. I don't know why I'm the one that gets to say right now, but you get to be king. And it's like, oh, then now we're okay. It felt like Aladdin. When Soul just can fucking whatever rule he wants, he can just
Yeah,
write.
he just
That
rewrite
was
it.
weird. And I feel like there was such a tonal shift once we got to the Dragon Pit scene on, where so much of this episode, I'm like, is this a almost light comedy now? Like, there's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of just like Tyrion kind of putting the seats later.
Like the fact that
this is
Grey Worm
weird.
didn't like fucking hit him in the
Yeah.
face, like shut up, like quit
Yeah,
talking.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he
Interesting
told him
tonal
to shut
shift.
up. He told him to shut up twice or
Yeah.
whatever. But I felt like I did feel like why does Tyrion have like, everybody's attention right now?
I think the
why
reason
is he allowed to have
I
this?
think the reason why he's allowed to have it is because he's the last representative of House Lannister, right? And Lannister is clearly one of the most powerful houses in the Seven Kingdoms, and even though they just toppled, the previous Lannister family,
have you done
he's
for me
already
lately?
he's
Yeah.
already proven that he wasn't aligned with them and their political goals a long time ago.
Yeah, but one of his last like acts to while Daenerys was still alive was betraying her and releasing.
Well, that's what he
his-
said.
I love his line of 50% hate me for this, 50% hate me for that.
Yeah.
Here
I
am.
can't be.
Yeah, and
What an analogy for this whole episode.
Yep. No, for real.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I think what I liked about the scene though was that he showed up and everyone's like, we have no idea what to do at this point, and he was the only person who had some level of plan. So everyone's like, yeah, let's go with that one. I like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, also the
I like
Tully
that.
guy being like, "Well, if we need a leader," and it was just like,
Really
"Shut
weird.
up,
Sit the fuck
Shut
down.
the fuck
Uncle,
up."
sit down.
and the thing that
Yeah, such stupid
the other
comedy to throw in there.
gap that they
Those
had
comments
was
great.
this idea that Grey Worm was somehow set up as the guy who had been ruling King's Landing in like
It's
the
their city
presumed
now.
months
Yeah.
since the battle and since Daenerys' death, and that they kept Tyrion alive. I'm just like,
Why would they have kept Tyrion alive?
Yeah,
Why
there's a
would
lot
they
of
have
it.
kept Jon
Jon
Snow
Snow.
alive? It doesn't make any
Well,
sense.
but I think we got that. Sansa has that one line where she's like, if you do this, there's a lot of people outside of the city that are going to like wage war. So there's a lot of
But they
Northerners that are
weren't
still there.
They had to get there from
Yeah.
the
No,
north.
but you have to assume that there's still a lot of Northern troops left from the
left
siege.
over from the siege.
Like we didn't
yes.
see them, but because they were outside, because why would they party with the Dothraki and the Unsullied? Like you assume they went back to their camp and were there. So I got from that hey, if you kill Jon, there's about 20,000 Northerners outside of the gate that are just going to kill everyone, and we got to stop this. And at that point, Grey Worm was like, "Fuck, they're right. Like we can't keep fighting. This is stupid. It's going to just kill." Like the point was, it doesn't matter anymore. You're just going to, it's just killing for killing's sake at this point. Pick a fucking leader. Let's have peace. Everyone go retire.
What I thought was really like egregious and like just interesting that they didn't go anywhere with this was the fact that like Varys was writing letters telling people, hey, this dude is Jon Snow is actually Jon Targaryen or Aegon Targaryen, whatever you want to call him. And
Nobody brought it up.
Nobody brought it up. Not one person was like.
It was a plot device that they could have never introduced in the series. Would have been fine.
Yeah.
It was a little.
He could have just been Jon Snow, the bastard son of Ned Stark, the entire show,
time, yeah.
and
Yeah.
like his arc would have been just fine without it.
It's
like
true,
it
'cause
was
they-
a weird.
Well, they needed
it
to
was a
drive.
weird-
They needed
feel like
to
drove
drive
Danny,
between.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also.
They didn't need to drive a wedge with that.
I'm with Andrea. Like what drove the wedge between them is that people were just more loyal to Jon. Like he had a whole entire region of the North that just loved him and elected him king. That could have been enough. They didn't
And the
need to
fact that
have
he saw her kill all of those innocent
Yeah.
people was enough for him to make the decision he did. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was half Targaryen.
Yeah, that we
right?
never got a
But I
resolution
just
for that. It's
like,
sad.
why did the dragon not kill him so that we can have this ending shot of him walking off to the north and being like, oh, well, I guess he's gonna live his life now. It just
Yeah.
seems
Bro.
so
Dragon
like
blood, communication.
happy and
Yeah.
HBO needs sequels. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
So we get to this moment where, Tyrion has nominated Bran to be the king, and it makes sense. I mean, he would be a good ruler. And then they kind of say after that, the lords and ladies of Westeros will choose their rulers. Rulers will not be born. He gives this whole line about how
They'll come
like
back
the sons of kings aren't generally fit to rule, and Sansa, you know that. And then they do this vote where everyone votes, and then it comes down to Sansa as the last vote, even though clearly if she had voted the other way, like she's overruled at this point anyway. It's more symbolic than anything. Then she stands and she says, the North will remain an independent kingdom as it was for thousands of years.
So stupid.
Instead of just saying, yes, I vote
stupid-
for Bran because it's a Stark on the Iron Throne and the North can bend the knee to one of our own household members.
yeah.
She says, nah, bitch, I still want to be queen too.
Yeah, because her reasoning was they don't want to bend a knee to anyone, and then we get a scene 5 seconds later where they're like Queen of the North, and it's like, whoa, okay. Like this
She
makes
got that
no
dope
sense.
ass dress though.
Not only that, but like
Was dope.
But if
The
I had
sleeves coming
voted,
off
if
the
I had
side.
voted for Bran, and then I knew that it was an option to just be like, no, I can be
Yeah.
my own independent. I'm
You
like,
saw
oh, you know
Yara's
what?
face. She
Yeah.
had a reaction to it.
Yeah.
It's hella funny.
Like if I was Yara, I'd be like, I don't
I'll
want
take
a
my
king.
back. I'm gonna take.
Like I take my vote back.
I didn't know
That
we
was
could be
so
free.
stupid. Yeah. That was
It's
such
just-
a dumb moment.
It's such a dumb moment, and it like continues this whole bullshit fan service. It's like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Why would this kingdom be allowed to be free? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Again, it is a bad fan service moment because fans have wanted this. Fans who love the Starks and stuff, like Alyssa, who has read these books for years, is like, at the end of the day, I want the North to be free in their own kingdom. And they did it, but they didn't lead up to it in any good way. It just came out of nowhere. And it's just like, oh, okay, I guess that's happening
It's
now.
what's silly about her being like, for thousands of years we've been free. Yeah, that's true for literally all the other houses. They were all kingdoms. Like when Aegon the First came in and took over, everyone had been
Aegon
a
the
kingdom.
Conqueror?
Aegon the Conqueror. Like they said 7 kingdoms, and it's like, well, then why do you still get to be free?
Yeah, that was
Because your brother's on the throne. You just elected him.
To me, it's you have one king, or you just have everyone gets to rule their own land, and everyone stay the fuck out of everyone else's business.
And the thing that felt the most false to me was
Which would've been the safest, by the way.
Yara. So because she clearly threw in for House Targaryen with Daenerys. She said, I pledged my allegiance to Daenerys, and then Jon put a knife in her heart. He should get what he deserves. And she's like very clearly angry. She's like, we all pledged to serve the queen, and then you guys just killed her. But then she voted for Bran, and then of all the people, of all the characters and the way they've set up the Ironborn for the whole series, they probably would have been the first to be like, yo, bitches, we're going to do our
we're
own
done.
thing out on the Iron Islands. Like deuces.
They rebel so many times. Like that's their thing.
That's
Like,
their
hey,
thing.
fuck the North. But it's like, all right, I guess they're down to be part of, because you would imagine they'd still be part of the separated North now.
But the thing is this, like, if the biggest problem that these people have faced in every lifetime is that some king goes fucking nuts and has way too much power, and that really is kind of a central theme of this season, is that when you get to that level of you're about to have power, it corrupts you, then why wouldn't the option be, how about just no king? How about we just do away with the idea of one monarch ruler for all these? Because clearly if the North is so big that it can't be ruled anyway, like, then what does it matter? You know,
I think if they do
there's
that,
no point in
though-
having a king where like, but there's another king somewhere else. Like,
If they
let
do,
everyone be
I think
kings.
if they do that, then the answer is that's a cop out. Like I think this whole season's been damned if you do damned
but
if you
going
don't.
into this, I was like, the symbolism of the dragon melting the throne, the symbolism of like the King's Landing is burned down. This place where the king ruled is gone. I was like, 100%. I would have put money on the fact that someone was gonna be like, how about just no king? How about we all just rule over our lands and everyone stays the fuck out of everyone's business and that's it? Because if you have this much power, you're going to be eventually corrupted somehow.
Well, I think the idea behind a kingdom is that you share wealth and resources amongst the kingdoms. Like one kingdom has this resource, the other kingdom has this, and that by being united, like the United States are united, like you get to share those resources amongst each other. And in order to do that, you have to have somebody running the shit at the top. Otherwise, it's just chaos.
And that person at the top, and throughout the seasons that we've seen, like hasn't been the corrupt one always. It's usually the people underneath.
right.
Right, like
Tommen.
during the show, like Tommen was good, Robert Baratheon.
Was fine. He spent a lot of money, but he was fine.
Who's the other? Renly also.
No, Renly was
never technically
yeah.
king.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I mean, but Robert led Robert's rebellion, so like I wouldn't have called him fine.
Well, yeah, but
like,
after
to
that, he
stop
did
the
nothing.
Mad King, though.
right.
Well, that's what I'm saying is everyone gets the wars have started because of this throne. So if the
They've
throne
been-
doesn't exist anymore, like maybe that would be actually a better way
But
for peace.
wars were happening way before. This was never like a peaceful place. Like back when it was 5 or 7 different kingdoms, they would fight amongst each other constantly.
That's always going to
course,
happen.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if the idea of like giving someone ultimate power scares you enough so that you go like, we're going to elect an official, like, what are they thinking? Cersei just took the fucking throne last time. It's not like anyone she didn't have any lineage to that throne. She shouldn't have sat on that throne. She just said, fuck it, I'm here, I'm going to take it. Is that not just going to happen when Bran dies eventually?
100%.
That's
Like,
100%
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
Tyrion just looked at like who's the most boring motherfucker to rule for the next 70 years.
I think Bran was the right choice, and we see that in the next scene where he walks in and goes, you guys just take care of stuff. I'm going to top level this, and you guys got this? You guys understand? Cool, I'm bouncing.
Yeah.
Like, I get that. I love the idea of you have to do it because you're the one person who doesn't want to do it. Like, I forget, there's multiple movies like that where it's like you got to take the shield because you're the one person that doesn't want to take the shield, you know, so you deserve it.
But again, that was why it made so much sense for Jon and like Jon's arc, and then
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
don't follow through with it.
They
which
don't
was
at
weird.
all.
Yeah.
One of my favorite tweets of the night was that, Tyrion saying, well, clearly, who's had a more interesting life, and who's the most interesting person here? Like, clearly, Bran has this life that is what stories he could tell.
I'd be like, what?
They're saying, and in
If I
the
was
corner,
Sansa, I'd be like, what?
They're like in the corner. Arya, who has like shapeshifted and killed the invincible Night King, is like, excuse me, what? Like, like, I've had a life, dog.
motherfucker. How about me? I get to be king.
She had a good year and a half, and then afterwards she was like, "I'm not going to use any of these abilities
that's true.
ever
That's
again."
true.
So
Well,
it's cool.
We don't know that. So speaking of Jon, the next scene is
Well, they make Tyrion the Hand, also.
yes. So
Yeah,
they
yeah.
force him into being the Hand, and they have
Grey
this
Worm's just
bullshit
like,
excuse
Grey
of like,
Worm was just like, "All right, cool guys. Seems like you sorted it all out. I know I wanted to kill him for talking earlier, but all right, I'm gonna go to North."
I've moved on.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they really like swept the rug out from under Grey Worm here, but like.
But he does get his own little
Again,
land,
at this
so
point,
that's cool.
my hands were already like in the air of like, well, whatever, dude, it's fine. So we get to this moment where Jon is in prison. Tyrion goes to visit him, and then they say, you're getting sent to the Night's Watch, and I wrote biggest troll of all in my notes. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? That's Jon's fate, is to get sent to the Night's Watch. Also, why the hell is there Night's Watch? Tyrion's response of there always needs to be a place for like bad and
Bastards.
broken men
Bastards
or whatever.
and broken men.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever. Are you
But
fucking
to
kidding me?
be to be fair, there should be a Night's Watch because the Night's Watch wasn't for many years. They weren't protecting against the White Walkers. They were protecting
Against the wildlings.
Against the wildlings.
which we should be cool with, I guess. I don't know.
But I also love,
Yeah.
I love that they close the drawbridge, and I'm like, does no one remember the giant hole that's about 20 feet that way, where anyone could just
It's
walk
not
through
20
this wall?
feet. It's actually like several hundred miles down the wall.
Well, I think
But-
people would probably figure that out.
No, they will for sure.
What I thought was they were going to go with this, and again, I think this would have been the best game time decision for the game, was that if they were like, hey, well, if what's his name, Grey Worm was like, we'll let Bran be king, but we have to have Jon's head. I thought they were going to behead Jon like they did Ned. And I thought that would have been a fitting end to his
That would-
story, like
yeah.
him sacrificing himself and being
Everything.
like, we have to, like, I thought Tyrion was going to go and be like, here's what we've landed. Your brother is king. Sansa is like independent North. Pretty much the Starks rule everything. One small thing though,
It's a
we
little
gotta cut your head
detail.
off.
Yeah.
Well, he was
Otherwise,
ready
the
to
Unsullied
die.
and the
Yeah.
Dothraki are gonna fucking rage, and that's not gonna be cool. And I don't buy that they were like, oh, if you kill Jon, the Northerners are gonna be pissed off because guess what? We just elected a Northerner king. So like,
Not only that,
That's
the
a nice
Northerners are
compromise, right?
independent.
Yeah.
The Northerners totally independent.
oh, and they're
now,
independent,
yeah,
but they're also gonna elect their own queen.
now
so
the,
that's cool.
the Starks control
Everything.
Westeros, the North, and possibly the far north
Yeah.
too. And it's
all the
just
vacation
like, all
homes
right,
up
cool.
in Tahoe.
Yeah, but they're not like the Dothraki who just move on from their leaders being killed. Like they're people. Those are human
Yeah,
beings
they're
in the north
loyal.
that would be
They're-
pissed off
they're
that Jon
loyal.
Right, but
was
if
killed.
the
But,
two
I mean,
other
that's
heads of the
already happened,
Starks were
though.
like, "Hey, this is what had to happen because he killed the queen. Like, you guys have to understand. Like, this is what brings peace. Yeah, it sucks, but I needed a gut wrenching scene of us seeing Jon being beheaded to be like, all right, that's the game.
Yeah, that would have felt more real
Yeah.
and true to like what the story we've known so far.
Not like,
Also,
hey, we're gonna send you up to Castle Black, but by the way, no one's really paying attention, so you can go wherever the fuck you want
Yeah.
because Grey Worm's on another land I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Also, like, I don't know if I agree with you saying that the North, like, I know that the North remembers is their whole big thing, but when Ramses took over, I didn't see a rebellion. A couple houses were upset, but eventually they like got their like the top of the house killed, and that was it. They eventually submitted. So it's like I'm sure they would have been like, oh, he died for killing the queen. I mean, you
He
got to
assassinated
think,
a queen. For
yeah,
Christ's
Jon
sake. Like,
Snow
we gotta
right
kill
now
him.
is like,
Or he did the
he's
right
a
thing.
Kingslayer.
Like
Yeah.
he did the right thing is what a lot of them would be thinking.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters that he did the right thing. Where
Yeah, but politically, I think that's where I wanted to see it go.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did the right thing, but he did the wrong thing for the right reasons. Let's put it that way. Or he did the right thing for the wrong. Either way, he had to do
Yeah.
a horrible thing, and I think people would have been like, "Well, all right, this is what's needed for peace." Because that's what this whole episode was supposed to be about. Like, we have to make compromises for peace. We can't keep fighting each other. And like Grey Worm kind of gets it, and then it's like, well, they're gonna give me a lot of boats, so I'm bouncing.
Yeah. So speaking of which, we get this like little dialogue moment between Jon and Tyrion. Was it right what I did? Because clearly Jon's been reflecting and thinking about this, and then Tyrion says what we did, acknowledging that he convinced Jon to actually kill Daenerys. And then they kind
bro,
of
I did it. You know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
didn't do it.
Give me some credit.
So-
man.
Come
on,
Like,
bro.
tag me in that fucking tweet.
so they kind of like leave it unsaid, and then we get this nice moment where the Starks all say goodbye to each other, where they're sending
happy.
Jon on his little boat out to the ship that's going to take him to the Wall. Sansa is going back to the north to be the queen of the north. Bran is going to remain the king of Westeros, and then Arya, Jon says, you can come visit me at the Wall. Like, they're never gonna tell you a woman can't come into the Wall. Ha ha ha. You're a badass, right? And then she's like, yeah, but I'm not going north again.
The wall sucks. I'm
Yeah,
not going
she's
up
like,
there.
I'm not going there. She's like, and then Sansa, where are you going? It's like, what's west of Westeros?
Let's
She's
go,
like,
baby.
Nobody knows. That's where all the maps stop. And so presumably, she's gonna go explore the new world, air quotes.
nobody
in her-
knows because people keep trying and dying. Very, very bad. Like, they just disappear.
But none of them killed the Night King.
But also, doesn't the dude, the
guess.
man with many faces, she still owe him a lot?
Yeah.
Like, isn't he trying to kill her still?
I would imagine,
I don't
but
like, I
guess
got
I
a
don't
debt
know.
to pay. I thought she was gonna be like, I got a
they
debt
kind
to
of
pay.
made good.
Yeah,
I think he kind of sent her west, right? Like she was going west of Westeros, and then kind of got distracted. She was like, "Well, I'm close to Winterfell, so I'm going to do that first."
Yeah, once
when
he
she
killed,
was- when was
once
she
Arya
going-
killed Waif,
Yeah, I thought it
She
was.
was going west of Westeros.
he was just like,
She
"You're
said
chill."
that?
yeah, back in like season end of 5. Maybe
I don't
it was
remember
beginning
that.
of 6.
I don't remember that
at all.
moment, but
Yeah.
so I can't say yes or no. And then after this moment, we see Grey Worm on the ships with the Unsullied, saying, set a course for the island of Noth, which I think is, a nice throwback to him going to see Missandei's home island. What they're going to
Butterfly's
do.
going to kill her. right?
Yeah, he's
If
gonna
they,
die.
stay, if they stay too long, yes, the butterflies will kill them. in
poisonous
in a very
butterflies.
terrible way. Where I looked it up and like
Yeah,
all
no,
their
it's-
skin like
it's-
falls
I mean,
off
like,
their body.
let's not go there. Let's
Yeah,
go to
let's
let's
go
go
to
to
organic
Maureen or
Well, you
whatever.
go,
Also,
you, like you pour one out, for
Yeah.
Miss Handy, and then you
Bounce.
shove off. Yeah. But then we get a couple really fun scenes. The first scene is a kind of impactful one where we see Brienne in her full gold cloaks uniform,
man.
which is amazing. so that she's part of the Kingsguard, presumably the leader of the Kingsguard, which I think we discovered
Yes.
in the following scene. She's got the book of the gold cloaks.
The White Book, is that what it was called?
I don't remember the exact name of the book, but it's this giant book that kind of tells all the stories. We saw this with Jamie and was it Sir Barristan? Like several seasons ago, where they kind of write down the history of all of the knights of the gold cloaks, and so she finishes Jamie's story and ends it with he died protecting his queen, which I thought was a really nice touch.
I loved all this stuff.
Yeah, that was
great.
from here on out. I was like pretty happy with how things went.
Am I the only one that saw that? Was like, you got to blow on the ink first before you close
and
it.
we all did. Everyone was talking about
what are you doing?
the
Close the
ink.
book,
Thank
it's a
you.
spear.
Great handwriting, though.
Yeah, great
Yeah,
handwriting.
like calligraphy. Don't fuck it up.
That gives
Brienne.
me anxiety. I can't do that. With when I send birthday cards, I leave them open for like a half hour.
Did they went through it really quickly, and I didn't read all of it, but did she add anything about killing the Mad King for like a good reason, or?
I don't think so. I think she just picked it up with she picked it up with him sacrificing like his hand for her, like that whole area.
She
or
talked
the
about him
whole
getting
story,
captured in the Whispering Wood.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
and
all
then
the-
sacrificing his home for whatever, like whatever, I forgot the
the
Lannister's
Casterly
home.
Rock
Casterly
when
that's right.
when the Unsullied army came, he sacrificed it to do the attack on Highgarden, and
fought the
like
dead and all that
she
shit.
wrote she
painted him in a pretty
wrote
good
a
light.
pretty complete history
Yeah.
of what happened to his story.
She didn't say
piece of
which
shit,
queen.
yeah.
She was like, I'm not gonna. She was like, just queen. Let's just put queen.
I wish she had just wrote sister fucker on there. just so everyone knows.
I mean,
like,
let's
fuck
put it this way.
guy.
She's not the only person that has access to this. Someone could just go in there in parentheses, be like, sister fucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, super into incest.
You guys
super into
are
it.
the worst.
I know.
So now we get probably my favorite
Jesus
scene of the whole finale, where we have Tyrion in the small console
I
room.
love this.
He is sitting in his chair with the hand on it. He's got his hand pin on, and then he gets up and he goes around and tidies up all the
Straightens
chairs.
it. He's like nervous. He's like, okay,
Yeah.
we gotta get this
First
right.
day
this
of
Because
time.
he is the king
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Like that, and I love that. I
But
thought they
like,
did a
but we
great job
don't
with it.
know that just yet until Bran comes in. And like everyone comes in. First off, well, let's go through who comes in.
Yeah, so
This
we
is
have
awesome.
So
This is like,
so Davos comes in, Bronn comes in, Samwell comes in, and Brienne comes in, and Samwell is holding this giant book.
He's in the Maester clothes with
Yes,
his
he's got
hype.
his Grand Maester outfit on, which I love. And he's got the Song of Ice and Fire from the Citadel, from the Archmaester at the Citadel. The story of the wars following Robert Baratheon's death. So essentially the entire series of Game of Thrones as we know it. And
great moment
And
here.
then
where-
Frodo Baggins signed the book.
Yeah, but there's this great moment where Tyrion's like, how do I come off? Do I come off bad?
What
do I
did
come
he
off
say
good? Is it
about
bad?
me?
Am I bad? And he's
and
like,
it's like beat,
you're not even
beat,
mentioned.
beat. I don't believe you're mentioned.
Another dumb joke. I feel like to be like, all right.
Yeah, it was weird, but something I enjoyed that is like outside of the episode is the actor that plays Sam was interviewed and was,
John something.
John something or other.
Yeah, let me look at his
but
name.
Sam in the show was interviewed and asked like, oh, a lot of theories and rumors have the series ending with you writing the story or your character writing the story of everything that's happened.
John Bradley.
John Bradley. What do you think about that? And he like actually gave a really thorough response, and he's just like, I really like that idea, and we'll see where they actually end up going with it. He's like, but the idea there though is that's from his perspective then, and it's like that maybe it would make a lot of sense that it was written by him for how well John is portrayed, and maybe John wasn't the things didn't happen the way that we saw the story, and John wasn't as noble and good as everything
Right.
said because it's from the perspective of his friend or whatever. I'm like, this is cool shit. I mean, that's just getting real ethereal, but
we've already
I like
seen
that.
wasn't
we've already
written by
seen a
him.
tinge of that though when Brienne decided to kind of rewrite history a little bit with
The book.
Jamie,
Yeah.
where it's like, I want to paint this guy in a slightly better light, and so who's to say how all this stuff went down?
But
It's true.
even then,
He didn't write it.
I know he didn't, but then the other guy did, not leaving Tyrion out of it. Like that's not.
yeah,
what
he doesn't have
happened.
No,
perspective.
like, the idea that Tyrion got left out of the book is like maybe a funny quip for half a second, but then you think about how impactful Tyrion was across all of those seasons. Not to mention that he's currently Bran's hand. He was Queen Daenerys' hand. He presumably, he killed Lord Tywin. Like he was thought to have murdered Joffrey. Like his importance in that story cannot
It's
be
tremendous, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
cannot be overstated. And so like the idea that he just got left out because it's funny, like I was like,
That's so
Well, I didn't
stupid.
see.
Sure.
I didn't get that it was. I get that everyone kind of had a good laugh about it, but I didn't read that it was he was left out for a comedic beat in the story. I read that he was left out because the people who are writing the history really don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And like a perfect example of that is like when Jamie back in I forget what season it was when he really breaks down why he killed the king.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's perception of why he did this was that he was like this weird power hungry guy, and he was like, no, the king was fucking torturing people, and I finally broke and like had this horrible moral dilemma, but nobody knows that. And like I think that was the whole point of saying like Sam didn't write it. Someone from far away wrote it, and
yeah, but
the
he was
history's
still
gonna be
in
wrong.
the history book, right? They didn't just leave him out. They just left his motivations out.
Yeah.
Like the idea that they completely left Tyrion out of A Song of Ice and Fire is bananas.
It is a
and
little
I
Also,
bonkers.
I just feel like
Especially since he's currently the hand of the king.
Right.
And you're like,
naming
I'm still
it
alive, bro.
A Song of Ice and Fire is very fan servicey, and it's like if you're gonna go fan service, have Sam come out and be like, "Hey, me and Bran just wrote this, and he fucking can
nailed
see
it.
everything."
Yeah.
So
They
this is
should have done that.
actually what happened, and it's
having
instead.
Bran be part of the writing
Yeah.
of the book makes 100% sense.
Instead, it's just a dumb throwaway joke of like, "Oh, we actually named it that. Like, isn't that cool? Like, this is the name of the series." And it's like,
I audibly booed when they brought. I was like, boo! That fucking sucks.
I didn't mind it being called that. I didn't mind that.
I was
No,
dumb.
I didn't care.
I didn't mind
Well,
it.
especially since the series is told from the perspective of each of the individual characters, and
that
so
would have been perfect
Yeah, it would have been better
because Bran could see from their perspective.
He's got a lot going on.
But the
like,
best moment is when
Looking for
Bran
dragons.
gets wheeled in. They all stand, and then they have this one moment where he's like, "Okay, this is happening with this. This is this," and then he asks like, "What's the news on Drogon?" And they're like, "Oh, he was seen to the Far East." And then Bronn quips, "The farther away, the better." And then Bran being like, "Well, let me see if I can find him." And then he's like, "All right, you guys got the rest of it." And then Brienne says, "Sir Podrick." And I was like, "Yay!
Hell yeah, dude.
The best moment. Pod got to be a knight. So exciting." And then they call him like the ruler of the Six Kingdoms, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, "Long may he reign." They all said it awkwardly. And Tyrion's like, we'll work on that.
And he's
Bran,
like,
I'm sure you will.
I'm sure you will. I love that. I really liked that. Yeah.
And then we get this fun moment where we have this banter back and forth between the different masters of their individual roles. Davos as the master of ships, Bronn as the master of coin. Also,
Which
who the
doesn't
fuck
fucking
makes
make
Bronn
any
the
terrible
master of
idea.
coin?
Terrible.
It's because
idea.
I guess he has the most money so that he can lend like the crown
As the
whatever
Lord
they
of
want.
Highgarden.
Yeah,
So
and it
Tyrion
just-
making good on his debt.
Another stupid fan servicey thing of like,
Bizarre.
oh, look at him.
It was
But I
so
mean, I
weird.
like the little back and forth where he's like, "Have we made good on this? Are you happy? Great. Can we borrow some money? Like, we
Yeah,
need some money, bro.
great.
We got to rebuild all this shit now, and you got to lend us
It's
some
just
money."
it's so sad to see this show turn into like
An episode of Cheers.
yeah, where it's like, look at these guys, they're all happy. Almost everyone got what they wanted except for Daenerys.
the only thing I like about this scene though is that you're like, okay, these people actually care and will actually rebuild the city.
Yeah.
And like you got Sir Davos, and he's gonna rebuild the fleet, and it's good.
Yeah.
It was good.
I liked this scene.
I like the scene.
And
The only thing
then
I didn't like about it was the slow zoom out.
of
like
them,
you
like-
wanted the credits of
It
like
just reminded me.
Larry
Of,
David.
there's a scene in Family Guy where they're walking away from the camera and they're like, "Yeah, so we're just talking to. Hopefully, our voices will get lower." Like it's like they reference what's going on. Yeah, it was kind of just cheesy to
Yeah,
me.
no, it was like a trope for sure.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I like seeing all my characters. That
I wasn't mad
love,
at.
yeah.
There were other things I was way more mad
I
at.
like the brothel discussion. It's like we gotta rebuild the brothel.
And
Yeah,
then
I don't think you guys understand how much important it is.
the Grandmaster being like, well, the Archmaester says the sanitations of brothels and blah, 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 blah. So then we get to our final scenes. We get Jon at the wall.
I gotta go. I gotta fly.
Bye, Tim.
But
I'm sorry we didn't get to the end.
it's all good. It's all good.
Okay,
The
so
last thing I have to say, I really like the shots of the Starks, like the symmetry of like over their heads and then coming towards them. The camera work was really cool.
Yeah, with the music playing, the walking away. Yeah.
okay, well, have fun in Florida,
Yay.
Tim.
Yeah.
Don't forget to go see Greg and Tim at the Florida meet and greet.
Yeah.
Details kindoffunny.com/events.
No,
No, it's not there. Just kidding.
Greg,
Just
Twitter. Follow
check
us
Greg's
on Twitter.
Tim's tweets. Okay, here we go. The wall. So Jon is entering Castle Black, and then Tormund is there when they get like this kind of moment where, I mean, and I was kind of hoping Tormund would break into his goofy self, and he didn't. He stayed very serious the whole time. But you could kind of tell that Jon was relieved. He was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot my buddy is up here."
Yeah, I got homies up here. I'm good. I'm be good. I think that was also a lot for the audience as well, where we're like, "Oh, it's so sad," and hopefully he's there. And then he's the first. You see that like just a little bit of red hair, and you're like, "All right, he's got some people up here."
Yeah, and then we
These
get
are his
this
people.
fantastic montage between Jon, Sansa, and Arya. So ending the series with the Starks as the series began with the Starks. Jon, presumably the Lord Commander again of the Night's Watch. Is unclear.
You would assume
he was wearing
because
like
Ed
the
was
big
dead.
fancy cloak.
Oh, that would make him now the 1,000th Lord Commander, right? Because Ed was the 99th.
Don't
999.
know. Sure. This is a question for someone else.
Unless they had picked someone in the intermediate.
For Bran.
Yeah.
Potentially. And then Sansa being crowned Queen of the North, the Northerners chanting Queen of the North, Queen of the North. Arya getting on her ship with the direwolf, what's the name of that?
Sigil.
It's the Stark sigil.
No, the thing
Sail?
that goes on the top of the ship.
Masthead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so I thought that was a nice little touch that they had there. And then I wrote in capital letters, Ghost, OMG, finally. Because one of the final shots is him being reunited with Ghost before they go north of the wall.
that.
And then we see him walking off into presumably the sunset with the wildlings to start a new life with his buddy Tormund. And it's funny because a couple episodes ago, people were tweeting about how funny it would be if the three of them ended up having like a buddy adventure together north of the wall, and then they did.
Yeah.
And
So
then they
cute.
did.
And that's it.
And then that's it. And then the credits rolled, and that was the end of Game of Thrones.
That montage I just thought was so well done.
It was a
Just
really
the,
nice
the
montage,
Shot,
yeah.
The music, everything was just really, really well done.
I hated so much of it.
I know you've been
Kevin's
nodding your head
just
no the whole
saying-
time.
I'm upset. Like I invested a lot of time in this show. I've rewatched it so many times, and it just feels like such a departure from the show that I liked so much.
Sure.
And that so many people are like, "Oh, look, everyone, look at these people ending in such a happy way."
No, I told you where I'm at now is we knew like by episode 2 or really by the end of episode 3 that this season wasn't going to go the way that most of us wanted it to
Yeah.
go. And I could either choose to be mad and angry about it and hang on to that anger, or I can be like, okay, well, this is the choices they made. I guess I'll just come to terms
It's
with
not the
it.
best, but I've
and
accepted it.
appreciate it for what it is and enjoy some of the smaller moments, because there were some really fantastic moments throughout this season, sprinkled in with some really poor storytelling choices. But I mean, what are you gonna do? Be mad about it forever, I guess, Kevin?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I was
Yeah,
excited.
apparently.
I mean, I rewatched seasons 1 through 7. You know, like I want to say 6 weeks ago, right? So it was right before it started, and I was excited to like have this as something that I can rewatch. I was thinking about like, man, when it comes out in 4K, I want to buy the whole set, and really like every couple of years sit down and be like, let me watch this. I'm not gonna have that. Like like cool, it's over. This experience for me is done, and it's just like for me, I don't think there's rewatchability for this show. Just knowing how it all concludes, I have no interest in it anymore.
That's
and
fair.
it just saddens me to lose such an awesome story, or like what started off as such an awesome story.
No, I'm with you. I understand where you're at. Like, particularly the way they ended Daenerys' storyline to me was just a giant fucking bummer.
That's the biggest. That's the biggest offense for me, right? Is I was watching with my wife last night, and she was like, "I just feel like that was such a bummer of how they rushed that, and how it just feels totally unearned and just totally not set up." And I think that's 100% true. And to say, if we got to where we're at right now, with maybe 6 more episodes, I think this would have been the best ending of the show possible. Like I don't mind how they ended it. I just feel like
How
the
we
way
got
we
there.
got there
Yeah.
was, and I've heard people say this, and I don't want to like mirror because it's a negative sentiment, but it feels like really, really good fan fiction where you're like, this is how I wish we could all end it, and someone's
Yeah.
like writing, I'm
It-
liking what you're saying.
it
I'll write that
reminded
down, and here's
me-
what we're gonna do.
I disagree with the fact that like I feel like this last episode is very much like, oh well, everyone's pretty much happy. I get that like Tyrion didn't really want to be the hand, but like he did.
Sure he did.
He's told us multiple
Sure he
times
did.
that he loved the game, and it just to me it's
all about the game.
This
I think.
takes the show to like a little like typical fantasy mode, and it's just like, oh man, to me it's so disappointing.
It reminded, there were situations that happened in this last episode that reminded me of before Harry Potter book 7 came out, and there were like fake spoilers of like Ron and Luna get like married and stuff, and like Hagrid goes off, and on on an adventure and shit like that. Like there's again, Bran as the fucking king was still just like what the fuck is happening? Silence on our end, by the way.
That feels like they chose that because no one was expecting it, and it doesn't make any sense.
I think that could if you'd have told me that's how this was gonna end up, like okay, cool, I'd be interested to see how they got there, and they just didn't get there.
Yeah, they didn't get there.
But if you'd have told me that in season 1, like hey, FYI, the kid that got thrown out the window is gonna be king, I'd be like cool. That could be a cool ending. But again, anything could have been cool. It's just they didn't.
They didn't show us everything that needed to lead up to it. And again, we've said that a million times on this show. But yeah, I think it was still rushed, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I got.
Same.
Any final thoughts, anyone? No? Andrew?
I want to know who's going to be the next three-eyed raven now that Bran is the king.
No, I mean, he's still going to be a three-eyed raven. You got to imagine they're going to try to put a werewood tree in the middle of the thing, and he's going to try to embed himself in there at some point.
Yeah.
Do we think that whenever they pass
time.
on the king, do you think he passes on the three-eyed raven stuff to the next king?
Well,
No, I don't think so.
It can't be passed on like that. Also, it's extremely rare where it's like
It's like a magical gift.
One in like a million people have the power to warg, and out of those, it's like 1 in a million can be the three-eyed raven. It's a green seer. It's super, super rare.
Gotcha.
And all the children of the forest are dead, so like
Presumably,
they
yeah.
were all the ones that were doing that. That's where that all comes from.
Don't know, man.
Well, thank you for watching this episode of Game of Thrones in review. The next series, or tomorrow, we will be doing Aladdin in review.
Yeah, boy.
And so stay tuned for that. The animated
That's the animated version.
Yeah.
Then next week we'll do the live action version.
What's the show replacing this on Mondays?
Are we saying that? Have we announced that?
I thought you did.
Yeah, I think we did. We're doing We Have Cool Friends. Which
Yeah,
I
that
believe
was
is on
announced.
Mondays.
That's not on Mondays, right?
No, are we
You just,
messing-
you
Internet
didn't,
Explorer's
you
just
didn't
going
announce
back to
the
Mondays.
Explorer's going back
list,
to
the
Mondays?
cast list.
No.
But you did announce the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
gotta
think
talk to
Internet
them before
Explorers
it
is staying to Thursday. I think We Have Cool
Really?
Friends is staying on Monday.
So
yeah.
basically,
Here
what
comes
you're
Joey.
saying,
Joey
gents,
knows.
Joey, come on over. There's a
Joey, our
microphone right
three-eyed
there.
raven is here.
Hold on. I'm going to work into Joey.
Oh, hey,
Flip your eyes
everybody.
back.
I'm trying.
Oh, I don't like that.
Joey, what's the new schedule? Tell
the new
people.
schedule is We have Cool Friends on Monday, but not next Monday because it's Memorial Day.
Oh, that's right.
So we won't have any shows, any of the daily shows that day.
We're off that day.
Then it'll be normal rest of the week. And then Mondays will be We Have Cool Friends, Internet Explorer staying on Thursday.
Rocking.
There you go.
Everything else.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Also
in the
season.
comments below, let us know what you thought of the final episode of Game of Thrones. And let us know if you're excited for the prequel series that will hopefully be so good. We'll do another podcast series for that. Everyone, thank you all for joining us. Love you guys. This has been really fun, really cool. Remember to subscribe to this channel, hit that little bell notification, and on Wednesdays, watch KFAF for streamies.
Best show of the internet.
Bye.
And now the series is ending.